Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson for the first time in 2025. So it's lovely to see John back on the podcast. Newcastle welcome Bromley to St James's Park in the third round of the FA Cup. And that's what we're going to talk about. But before we do, I think it's only right that we wish John a happy birthday because, ladies and gents, he has clocked up another year. John, have you had a nice time of it?
Yes, I have. It couldn't have been more perfect, could it? Arsenal afterwards, and uh, there's been a lot of birthdays around. Mine was on January the 4th when we beat. Was it when we beat Spurs? And then on the day we played Arsenal, I was exchanging emails with two other dear friends of mine whose birthday was that day, fanatical Newcastle United fans, and getting twitchy about the game. And that's Super Mac, who was 75, and Ian Lafreniere, that wrote The Likely Lads, who was 88, both on the day we played at Arsenal. So what a birthday present that was for them. I know that Super Mac played for Arsenal, but his love is Newcastle United, where he got all his England caps. And Ian Lafreniere has been a fanatical Newcastle United supporter from long before he became famous with the Likely Lads. So it was quite a present for me, and it was a super present for them. And to be truthful, I'm red raw, Andrew, through pinching myself to make certain I'm not dreaming. Because, if I'd written a book which would have been called a fairy tale, and Newcastle would have won 7 games on the trot and would have beaten Manchester United, Spurs, and Arsenal all in a week and a half. And it
Yep.
would have been laughed out of court. And then I've woken up, and that's why I've pinched myself. And you probably can see the blotches and the bruises just to make certain I am awake and I'm not dreaming all this. Absolutely fandabaldozy. Great start to 2025. Where I am at the moment, and I've been away, it's -7 degrees, and I'm as warm as toast because I've got me love to keep me warm. And by
Lovely
that,
stuff.
I'm not talking about the missus, I'm talking about Newcastle United.
It's been quite the run. It has. It really has. And what we have to hope for is that we don't come back down to earth with a bit of a bang because Bromley are not a side to be underestimated. But as John's mentioned there, he is away, and it should have been on my mind to give him his birthday present before he went away, and that would have been a subscription to NordVPN because he's on his laptop recording this. And if he wanted that extra peace of mind to be secure, then he would have logged into his NordVPN subscription, which you guys can get at a discounted offer exclusive to our listeners and viewers of Everything is Black and White podcast. So hit the link in the podcast description box. Keep yourself secure and help protect the podcast at the same time. Right, John. Bromley at home, Sunday, FA Cup. Last season, Newcastle, quarterfinals, eliminated by Manchester City. But the season before that, eliminated by Sheffield Wednesday. Season before that, Cambridge United. So we have to avoid those two eliminations by lower league opposition this Sunday.
Yeah, don't rain on my parade. I'm still up high after beating three of the great clubs, if not teams, in beating Manchester United and Spurs and Arsenal. So when I think about that, and I think about 7 wins on the bounce, league and cup, I'm terrified by Bromley, aren't I? And I know that you have to treat them with respect and with realism, and I do both because uh, for several reasons. One of which is I was sitting unbelievably in the press box at Hereford when the greatest upset of all time happened, which was a top flight club being beaten by non-league part-timers, Newcastle against Hereford. I remember just before that, in Joe Harvey's very early days as manager of Newcastle, Bedford Town, a non-league side, coming to Newcastle and knocking them out the FA Cup. It's amazing when we think. Actually, it just reminded me, Andrew, when we're thinking, Lord, how great a manager Joe Harvey was, and by Jove, he was. He had two amazing cup defeats against non-league sides in Bedford Town and Hereford on his CV. And as you mentioned, just after um, just after Eddie Howe arrived, before a couple of months after, before he had time to sort everything out, we lost at home to Cambridge from League One. They were at the time League One, and actually it was Kieran Trippier's debut for Newcastle. and 9 players who are currently on the payroll, including 2 that went on a sub, played in that match. So, they know what it's like. But honestly, I've got to be truthful, Andrew. Right from the start, I've got to be truthful. I don't want to hear about banana skins. I don't want to hear about flukes. I don't want to hear about what if we get a player sent off? What if an own goal scored and we must keep our feet on the ground? My feet aren't on the ground. I don't want them on the ground. They've been on the ground for 40 odd years. I want them up in the air again. It's a wonderful feeling to have this, as long as we go into the match realistically. But I really can't see um, Newcastle United losing this game. I honestly can't, because I think we're beyond the stage where we take sides lightly. Um, because this is a match that can open the door to a trophy. I mean, we can't automatically expect, because we're 2-0 up at Arsenal, that we'll make Wembley. We will now, because we'll have the right attitude, but that we'll win at Wembley, and so we've got to keep the FA Cup going. And of course, we do know you'll not recognise the Newcastle side that plays from the side that played against Arsenal, because of all the changes. But I'll tell you this: he can make as many changes as he likes. If the players he puts on the park are not capable of collectively beating a mid-table League Two side, then they shouldn't be on the payroll of a top Premier League club. And I honestly cannot see it happening. I have the utmost respect for Bromley. I owned Gateshead for 10 years, for goodness sake. I love small clubs, the lifeblood of football. And Gateshead, I remember the greatest day I had with Gateshead, going to Halifax Town, who were a Football League club at the time. They were managed by Paul Bracewell, the old entertainer at Newcastle, and we knocked them out the FA Cup at their place. So I know what it's like for small clubs. But honestly, Bromley, when they've come to the Tyneside to play football matches, it has been in the past to play Gateshead, the other team across the water from Newcastle United. And as recently as April last year, in the season Bromley come up into the Football League, they played at Gateshead and lost 2-1. Gateshead being my other club. Now, honestly, are they going to get a better result against Newcastle on Sunday than they did when they played at Gateshead last April? With utmost respect to them, I also want to be realistic about this, and I cannot see, outside of the most massive fluke that could ever happen, like 3 people being sent off and them scoring direct from 4 successive corners. I can't see Newcastle not being in the 4th round of the cup.
Yeah, I think we all agree with you on that, John. As you say, you've got to be respectful, and you've got to be. You can't underestimate any side that comes to St James's Park. And what I will say is, I mentioned there the defeats to Sheffield Wednesday and Cambridge United. We also have to consider that Newcastle at that time were in a really bad run of form both times that they went out to low league opposition. Whereas this time, they're absolutely on fire. I mean, they are unstoppable. They've just found their form, and isn't it a joy to see?
Oh, I mean, I can't believe it. As I say, I'm still pinching myself. Um, I mean, just running through it quickly, when you say it like this, makes you realize how good they have been. We have won 7 on the bounce, league and cup. In those 7 games, we've scored 20 goals. We've never scored less than 2 in a game at all. In those 7 games, we've only let in 2. And in 9 days, we went to Manchester United, Spurs, and Arsenal and won them all. And we won at Arsenal, who are a chop club, a much better side than Man United and Spurs. But we won 2-0 at the Emirates without our number one goalkeeper, Nick Pope, without one of our number one centre halves, Fabian Schär, and without our skipper, Bruno. So, I mean, that's a quite. And by the way, as you well know, and every Geordie listening to this knew, because they watched the matches, not just Arsenal, but the other ones, we didn't fluke it. We didn't play hanging on the whole game and getting lucky on a one penalty and getting through 1-0. We didn't fluke it. We were fearless in the way that we attacked teams, and that has been wonderful to see. Now, I hasten to add that in my euphoria, before anyone wants to remind me that we've won out yet, I know that. I've sat through 5 Wembley Cup finals since we won in Budapest in '69, and we've lost all 5. I sat through Newcastle blowing a 12 points lead with the entertainers to take the Premier League Championship. I know we haven't won anything yet, but isn't it just wonderful? Aren't we allowed, just for a couple of days, to bask in the winter sunshine of what Newcastle United have done recently? We know they haven't won anything, but they've opened the window and let a bit of fresh air in and let a bit of winter sunshine in, haven't they? And that's marvellous. And we should enjoy it. We've done our penance for long enough, Andrew. We should be allowed to enjoy this. Why should we be apprehensive and worry about tempting fate and all that? We've earned our place in the sun, whether it's just a short while and passing, or pray that it's much more permanent than that. But we've earned the right to feel good about ourselves because that's what the boys have done for us. And well done to each and every one of them. And long may it continue. It's a peculiar match, this one, Andrew. It's a peculiar match because we say we're in a run of 7 successive wins. We've scored 20 goals and only let in 2. But we're almost talking about another team, than the one that's going to play on Bromley. We're saying they're full of confidence. We are, but this isn't the team. I mean, I worked it out. I'm not suggesting for one moment that Eddie Howe will do this, but he could do this. The side he could field, which would show, if he field the side I'm going to mention now, which would show 10 changes from the starting 11 against Arsenal. He could put out the Odysseus, the Greek goalkeeper, a back four of Trippier, Shaw because he's been rested, Kelly and Target, which has taken a chance, a midfield three of Bruno because he didn't play in the last game, Longstaff and Willock, and a front three of Almiron, Osula, and Barnes. Now that side, the only one that started against Arsenal is Willock, who's been well underplayed recently, so he's not there. And I've put Shaw and Bruno in because they didn't play at Arsenal. But that side, yes, I agree. You've got Target at left back. Yes, I agree. You've got a rookie centre forward in Osula. But if Target and Osula aren't good enough to beat a League Two side mid-table, with utmost respect, who have just come into the Football League for the first time in their history, if we're not good enough to beat them, what are they doing at St James's Park? He could put that side out, and I would still expect it to win. But it's therefore difficult to sum the game up, isn't it? Because it's not good saying we've won 7 out of 7. The side we've put out will not be the side that's won 7 out of 7 by any means. Because bearing in mind that not only do you spread the load against the League Two side, but bearing in mind we've got a midweek Premier League game coming straight up, Wolves. So naturally, you don't feel your full. You don't feel your side that played at Arsenal against Bromley and then feel it again against Wolves.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that will largely be the team that starts. I could potentially see Lewis Hall staying at left back, but I do think the rest of the team, as you've mentioned, will probably be the one that starts. Maybe I would like to see Lewis Miley start ahead of Joe Willock. And I think
That
that
would be
potentially
11 changes. That would be 11 changes, and
yeah.
it could easily happen. Could easily happen.
I think that might happen because I think it's the perfect opportunity to use him. I think he's behind in the pecking order, behind Joe Willock, behind Sean Longstaff, and obviously behind the other three. The first choice centre midfielder. So I think it'll be the perfect time to get Lewis Miley back in and give him a real good chance to show what he can do and to remind everybody what he can do. And I'm sure he would take that with both hands. But yeah, it will be a change side because you might have Martin Dubravka sold by the time Sunday comes along. Alexander Isak came off with a little feeling in his hamstring. Anthony Gordon's been running himself into the ground. But on the other hand, we might not see 10 changes. We might only see a handful. We might still see Gordon playing. We might still see maybe Tonali or Joe Linton playing because Eddie Howe doesn't always like to make wholesale changes. That being said, it's been a very busy period for the first choice 11, and it's a busy period coming up as well with, as you say, plenty of games to follow.
I think the possibilities you mentioned, Andrew, and we're all guessing, and Eddie always brings a surprise out the hat with his team selection, doesn't he? Where one eyebrow shoots up when we get the team an hour and a bit before the kickoff. But I think the remote chance that we would see any big hitters like Isaac or Gordon or Trinali or Dubravka playing is gone because Wolves follow so quickly. You're risking the injuries as well as the tiredness with Wolves following that quickly. And as I say, the side I mentioned, and I'm not suggesting that's the side he'll put out, but the side he could put out, and you go Miley for Willock, and then you've got 11 changes from the last one. I think he'll do that. And that side, if he did it, again with respect to Bromley, should be capable of beating him if the attitude is right. And that's the important thing. The attitude has not got to be we run out and an hour and a half later, or 2 hours later after the half time interval, we run back in and we're in the fourth round of the cup. Your attitude's got to be right. But I can't believe that any side Eddie puts out under Eddie and Mad Dog and Graham Jones in the dressing room, they'll allow the attitude not to be right. And by the way, if I was one of those players we've just mentioned, I would want to burst a gut in this match because it's an opportunity to remind Eddie that I'm still here. I think, regardless of Dubravka leaving, he wouldn't have played in this game anyway because you would play the Greek guy to give him a game and to protect your goalkeeper and it's going to be interesting to see who. I'm not interested so much to see who's in goal against Bromley. I'm interested to see who's in goal against Wolves.
Yeah,
That's going to be interesting.
I was just about to mention that because I think the Vlachodimos playing on Sunday against Bromley is massive because we do expect Dubravka to potentially be gone before the Wolves game. Will that be too soon for Nick Pope to return? He's only doing light training. There's no way how he's going to throw him back in. So Vlachodimos needs to get a feel for things because there is an excellent chance that he will start the game against Wolves as well. So it's a big, big day for him on Sunday if he does get the nod. And look, I think he's maybe been a little bit unfairly treated at Nottingham Forest and to a degree here at Newcastle United. Look, there's plenty of whispers, plenty of speculation that Eddie Howe didn't want him. It was more a PSR favour with the Nottingham Forest. Obviously, that's speculation. Newcastle United, Nottingham Forest are here to defend themselves, so we'll just get that legal bit in. But he can't be that bad of a keeper that he's just thrown into the wilderness by both Nottingham Forest and Newcastle United. I mean, you don't play 200 odd times for Benfica, however many times he's played in the Champions League. You're not a Greek number one goalkeeper who's kept, I think, 5 clean sheets in the last 6 if you're not a half decent keeper, right, John?
Yeah, yes, in theory. I mean, we've got to be realistic, and yes, we're getting the legal situation out of the way with Newcastle United, but he doesn't stand tall in the pecking order of Eddie Howe, does he? Because because he's been put beneath Dubravka, is back up to Pope, and I tell you what, our interest in James Trafford's far from over. We could well sign James Trafford either in January or in the summer, an absolute knocking bet. Well, if the Greek was that good, we wouldn't be looking at James Trafford, would we? But we are. So we've got to be realistic when looking at the situation. I think we're taking a chance with letting Dubravka go at this stage. I do think at his age and the services given here, he's got every right to want a final huge payday before it's all too late for him. And that's what Saudi is offering him, etc., etc. And quite frankly, the moment that he can walk on water, I'm certain he didn't come back from London and drive across the Tyne Bridge. I'm certain he just walked across it and didn't get his feet wet because everything he does has turned out to be perfect. But I hope this doesn't come back to bite him on the bum. I've got a feeling in the quotes he gives, he's a little bit uneasy about letting Dubravka out at this stage because Pope's not quite ready uh, physically and mentally to go straight back in on Wednesday. I'm not talking about Bromley whatsoever. And so, we've won 7 out of 7. If that becomes 8 out of 8 by beating Bromley, do we put that at risk against Wolves by playing our third choice goalkeeper because our first choice is injured and the second choice we've allowed to leave? Do we risk that when we need 6 points against Wolves in Bournemouth with 3 home games in a week? Do we risk that by letting Dubravka go? It is a bit of a risk, and I am a little bit uneasy about it. I've got to be truthful.
Yeah, I think many people are. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Martin Dubravka's future, what you made as well of Eddie Howe's comments, as John alludes to. And we'll find out more, of course, on Friday, hopefully from Eddie Howe about the situation with the goalkeepers. So we'll wait to see what the Newcastle United manager has to say there. William Osula, you mentioned, John. I felt from again on Tuesday when Newcastle went 5-5-0 and we saw Miguel Almiron going on ahead of him. Obviously, Miggy then dropped into that 5 of the midfield, and Newcastle didn't end up playing with a striker. But then Eddie Howe's comments afterwards about not having a man to target up top. Again, he's not doing that to dig out William Osula, and I'm sure
No.
William Osula is well aware of that, and he understands that he's got to progress on the training pitch, and his time will come. But you can't half feel a little bit sorry for the kid when the manager's talking about not having a striker to bring on.
Well, but what do you think he might just be saying to Paul Mitchell? By the way, mate, if not in January, in summer, I need a striker big time to back up Isaac. Do you not think he never mind the message to Sula? I think he's sending a message to the hierarchy above to say, listen, pal. And he also went on to say about how our players are wonderful, but the squad is thin. I think he's sending a message upstairs, not to the dressing room to Usula. He's sending a message upstairs. And we've got to live in the realistic world. Usula is one for the future, not a one for today. I would play him against Bromley because if he can't play what is effectively a League Two fixture, then we're all in trouble, including Will. So,
Yeah.
you can play him in that match. Whether I would want to go in to Wolves and Bournemouth with Isaac injured and the Sula centre forward is a whole different ballgame.
It certainly is. And I agree with you. That was the take I got from Isaac's withdrawal. And then when we heard about this hamstring twinge, if you want for a better phrase, is that it reaffirms Newcastle United's lack of options up front, because there's no way you want to be moving Anthony Gordon up top, the form he's in on the left. But again, we have to look at the financial restrictions and the price target it costs of a striker who can hit the ground running to come in. It's a bit of a mess. Not really any of Newcastle United's doing it because of these restrictions. But I agree with you in terms of the message it sends to the board potentially. But I don't think it's a message that the board will be unaware of. I think they will quite clearly, Paul Mitchell, be able to look at the squad and see and ask that hypothetical situation, which might come an actual realistic situation in the next week. What happens if Alexander Isak gets injured? And the answer is we haven't got a man capable to replace him.
Because we've all forgotten Lord Lucan. Callum Wilson, is he still there? Is he around? What stage is he towards fitness? Is he still on the books? Is he doesn't get a mention. We all just presume automatically now that he's unfit and unavailable. But everybody at the moment goes out publicly. It's that time of year, isn't it? The managers are going out saying, I haven't got a centre forward. And by the way, Isaac's got a little hamstring injury, so the panic sets in. Mo Salah, who never gets interviewed by the press. In his first 3 years, I think on Merseyside, he set a record for the lack of interviews he did. Now, after every single game, he's trotting in front of the cameras to say nothing's happening with his contract. This is the time where everybody's jockeying for position, isn't it? And to do it is to jockey publicly so that the fans panic. The fans panic is more leaving Liverpool. The fans panic. That puts pressure on the Liverpool board for the contract. Newcastle, Eddie sort of mentions that we haven't got a centre forward rather send Almiron on and play with nobody up top. He's not talking to Osula, he's not talking to Isaac, he's talking to the board, and he wants and Newcastle fans will immediately go, wow, Eddie's right. Yes, this is the one fly in the ointment. Let's do something about it. And so you do go public with your situation, and all clubs are doing, all club managers are doing that at the moment, and everybody that wants a contract's doing that at the moment. And by the way, if Dubravka goes, he'll be with my best wishes and my thanks for everything he's done for us. He has done startlingly well this time around. I felt last season when he come in and played in goal for Pope regularly, his form was a bit iffy, Andrew. You know, he was flapping at some crosses and he was a bit iffy. This time, he has not been conceding goals. He's looked full of confidence. His back four have confidence in him. That's the great thing. The two centre halves have confidence in him. And, you know, we've got away with Pope being injured. It's almost like getting away with Isak being injured, isn't it? We've got away with a key player being injured where we haven't got good cover. And the cover's come in and proved to be more than adequate. Now, to get rid of the cover, you know, is slightly worrying. And I think it does worry Eddie. And I think Eddie's coming from a slightly different position to the board. But it's all agreed. How much can we ask? Can we deprive Dubravka of his big deal? Will the Saudis hang on till the end of January? Ideally, that's the thing to do. Transfer him on the day before the January transfer window ends. That's the ideal thing to do, as long as Saudi would do that, and as long as Martin himself would do that. But that's the best way around it. But it's hard to deprive Dubravka of a huge payday at 35-year-old when immediately Pope's fit, and it might be against Bournemouth, he immediately goes back to sitting on the bench and he's lost his move. It is a very, very, very difficult one. But I'm slightly uneasy about it.
Yeah. And Callum Wilson is scheduled for a return potentially on the 15th of February. So he's missed
Oh, dear.
But do you know
And
what?
by the way, he hasn't started a game this season, has he? We're talking about the 15th of February. He hasn't started this season.
No, you're right. But get to the final, John comes off the bench, scores the winner at Wembley, and goes into the sunset with a winner's medal. There you go. There's the prediction. My other prediction, John.
Here's another prediction. Sorry, just as we're doing these fun things, because that is Fantasy Island. But here's another prediction. Might Martin Dubravka set an all-time record? When we played in the Carabao Cup final, he got a cup winner's medal from Manchester United because he played in the earlier rounds. Could he be playing in Saudi when we win the Carabao Cup this season? And he gets a medal from Newcastle sent out there. So he'd be with two different clubs. He was with Newcastle when he got his Manchester United medal. He'd be with a Saudi club when he got his Newcastle United medal. That might be something of a record.
It might be, but we have to get there first. So we're going to close that in a little box and throw it into the
No,
tank.
we're allowed to talk about it. Don't have fear, Andrew. We Geordies have far too much fear. Let's stop being frightened of our own shadow. We've got to believe.
Can I just point something out? Because I think I was in the minority on Tuesday and the build up to the game. I said Newcastle would beat Arsenal. I was adamant they would. And I don't think many people were on the same train of thought. So there was my confidence, John, and it was fully rightly placed.
Well, what's happened to it then, seeing as it was boosted yet again by you being right? Why have we all of a sudden got to put all the wonderful thoughts into a box and lock it away? I want to enjoy these, even if I only enjoy it till Sunday at 4:45, and then I'm in reality because Hereford or Bedford's happened. I want me 3 days in the sun. I've enjoyed what's happened to Newcastle in the last 7 games, and I think every Geordie that's followed Newcastle United deserve to enjoy these few days. Not get carried away before somebody tells us, I know we've won now. I know that only too well at my age because I've sat through all the failures. But I would like to enjoy the little bit of sunlight that's coming through that window at the moment.
Well, I think it was Mark Chapman or maybe even Shea Given on Sky's coverage on Tuesday. You know, he said the players won't get complacent. Eddie Howe won't allow that, but you can forgive the fans for dreaming about Wembley. And they were spot on. My other prediction, John, Sunday, William Osula, if he starts, he will grab not just one, he's going to get 2 goals against Bromley. This is his moment in the sun. and William Osula is going to impress, and he's going to fire Newcastle in the 4th round. I think the boy's got talent, he's got ability, he's raw, he's got plenty to learn. Hence why Eddie Howe's taking it easy with him. But from the little glimpses I've seen, and it's been very, very small glimpses, but there's something there about him, and I want him to get his opportunity on Sunday. And if he does, I think he'll take it and get on the score sheet.
Well, I genuinely hope he does. I want all that for the boy because he's a Newcastle United player now. I want all that for the boy. But I'll put it again. If he can't score against Bromley, what did we pay 10 million for?
Nope, it's a fair question. Hopefully he does get on the score sheet. Just a quick word about Bromley's form coming into this game before I get your score prediction, John. 2 defeats in 17. They did lose to Crewe 4-1 in the last game before they travelled to St James's Park. That was their first defeat in 13. Managed, of course, by former Newcastle United goalkeeper coach Andy Woodman, dad of Freddie Woodman. So he'll be looking forward to a return to St James's Park. He'll be absolutely buzzing that this draw got made. Look, they're in a good form, minus that last outing against Crewe, John. But as you said, really, Newcastle United, they have to be in the 4th round come full time on Sunday.
Oh, yes, I can only say one result. I really can. And that's with us more in the dark than we've ever been regarding Eddie's team selection. Because, we have no idea what he's going to put out there. The only certainty is that the vast majority, if not all of his big hitters will not start outside of Bruno and Shaw, who haven't been suspended and missing the last game. I think they could. Shaw's missed the last 2, so I think he will play for certain. And I think Bruno might well play because he did miss Arsenal. But you've got other players that are around, like Trippier and Kelly. We brought here. We've got Longstaff in Willock or Young Miley. We've got Almiron, who's done so much here. Barnes, who was bought for big money. They should be enough to guarantee a result. And they can, and I think will play in this game. I think Osula's not going to bet the start, Andrew, because he ain't going to risk Isaac with a little bit of hamstring trouble and 2 games in 3 days to come following it against Wolves and Bournemouth. Isaac's not going to play. He might well be on the bench, but hopefully unused from the bench because we've already won it. But yes, it's a difficult one, this, because we've got no idea of the team. Not a difficult match, a difficult one to predict. I mean, the first team could win 6. What's the second team going to win? Because it will be our second 11. And I'm still going for a win, and the score can be anything without knowing who's playing. But 3-0, I would suggest might well be it, and you could go to be anything. But I mean, the certainty for me, and I know it can change. I don't need reminding. I sat and watched. By the way, I sat and watched Elford not once, twice. The guy draw St James's Park was a replay when they beat us. They played us twice, and we couldn't beat them in 2 games, which was quite amazing. But no, if our attitude is spot on, the only thing that can defeat us is not Bromley, it's ourselves. And
Yeah.
I can't believe that Eddie Howe and the Mad Dog and Graham Jones will allow our attitude to be anything but spot on. And if I was Bonds, if I was Willock or Longstaff, or if I was Trippier, I would be wanting to make a point and going out in this match and doing the business. Osula, obviously, and doing the business and saying, there you are, I've put a little marker down. So they should be wanting to do it. We go into this match with the utmost respect for Bromley. By the way, both clubs, incidentally, Andrew, both clubs have been in existence for exactly 132 years. Both Bromley and Newcastle United were established in the same year. The only difference is that since then, what the 2 clubs have done. I mean, well, we've won the FA Cup 6 times, been in 7 finals. We've won the European Trophy. We've won 4 champions of England. They've won 3 FA Amateur Cups, 1 FA Trophy, gone through the leagues, the non-leagues, to eventually, in the mid last decade, made it into the National League itself. And then last year, via the playoffs, not automatic promotion, they got promotion into Football League, and they've made a fist of it in the Football League. Well done them. But the history, the 132-year history of Newcastle United and the 132-year history of Bromley is naturally very, very different, and we've got to make that count on Sunday.
Well, fingers crossed we can do. Fingers crossed Newcastle United do as we expect them to do. And they've done that in recent weeks as well, where we expect them to beat the poorer sides that they've faced or the inferior sides that they've faced. And Bromley, with all due respect, is one of those sides. They have to go out and beat them. Yes, it'll be a changed side, but they will have enough in their locker to do so. And hopefully Newcastle United are through to the 4th round. Thank you, as always, to John for popping on and providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. You know what to do. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Get your NordVPN exclusive discounted offer as well by hitting the link in the podcast description box. And for myself and John, we will see you guys next week.